Hello, everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. I'm your host, Shane McInnes, and it's been a pretty good day. I feel like David would craft scale models to explain things. Yeah, Joey, I was doing some stuff on Tuesday building a Gundam model, and I changed everything except for that one, and I just happened to have the little control panel page open when you said that, so I just swapped it over. I noticed that I put my summoning hands in the wrong spot when I did my summoning the adventure hat. But it says that I am Basileus. I am, yeah. Basileus McInnes. Hey, Mitchie, how's it going? Basileus is a Greek term for king, by the way. We'll get there. How is everybody? Hope everybody's doing well. The show is Adventures in History, where we talk about historical stuff and we make fun of pop culture and the people back then and ourselves and have fun and do really bad puns and dad jokes and all sorts of just shenanigans. It's just shenanigans. The whole thing from beginning to the end is just shenanigans. With the occasional rambling of a very pasty white guy. Yeah. Can sit in for a little while. King of Wishful Greeking. Hey! All of the titles are as close to a bad pun as I can make them. History of Horror Stories. Wow. That's off the top, Moose. Just drop in like you own the place. History of Horror Stories. Okay. We'll get to it. Put it on the list. I need to actually make myself a list of these things. I need to talk. Joey, remind me or shoot me a message on Discord. I need to talk to you about some potential implications of your stream. I don't know if you just meant ancient stuff or modern stuff too, but we can chat about that off stream. Hey, Asa, you're exhausted? Okay. Shenanigans. Hey, I like it. No, Moose, that's fine. It's just, you're kind of just like, hey, I'm here. Here's 10,000 points. Okay, what does the title mean? It's a bad song pun. Stream implications? I don't care about the horror stories, but it's Halloween, so it's thematic. You have 2 days. Yeah, there's the song King of Wishful Thinking. Like, I'm the king of wishful thinking. So, like, Alexander wanted everybody to be Greek. So, like, wishful Greeking. It's just a bad pun. Go West. He's dating himself. Okay. How is everyone? How are you all? Hope everybody's doing well. I lived through a hurricane last night. It was not the most fun thing ever. You'll notice that we don't actually have either of our normal mods in the stream with us tonight. We have one mod. We're down to one. So everybody be on your best behavior. So Kilted Preacher's house got hit pretty directly. The house itself is probably fine. He's going to have somebody to come check his roof out. He lost a bunch of his fence and some trees in his yard. His neighborhood got hit pretty bad. There's lots of trees down in the neighborhood as well. Our friend, other mod Mac in a lab coat, is actually in the process of moving right now. So it's not just you, sad face. It's just, if everybody gets rowdy, you're going to have a really busy night. It did pop through right my way. Yeah, Asa, you're over in Georgia, right? You don't have to tell us where you are. I just thought you were over in Georgia. Yeah, it was a tropical storm, but yeah, it was still a category like 1.5 by the time it rolled over our house. So, yeah, this is It's one of those storms that got really powerful really fast. Everybody's like, it's going to barely be a tropical storm. And then it was literally like 1 mile an hour lower than being classified as a Category 3 when it hit. So it's a giant city. Good luck finding us. All infractions result in being banned. Oh, my wife with the band hammer. That would be a fun thing to draw if I could draw. All right. So tonight we are talking about Alexander the Great, but we're going to back up a little bit. It wasn't the worst one that we've ever had in our life, but it was not. No hurricane is a good hurricane, right? There's no such thing as a pleasant hurricane experience. So hit us at around 3 a.m. was downgraded to tropical storm at 2 a.m. Yeah, this was our 6th hurricane warning this year. And there is another tropical storm looking weather system that's in the Gulf of Mexico right now that might get here around the end of next week. I don't even know what they're going to name it at this point. They've already run through all of the Greek letters. The last one was Zeta. Yeah, so, I mean, are we going to call it Double Alpha? Hurricane Double Alpha. Sounds like a really bad, late 1970s action flick where the Russians have created some sort of spy satellite that can control the weather. They still have 15. Oh, Zeta's the 5th 6 letter. Okay. Yeah, because Omega is the last one. My bad. Sorry, I'm confusing Zeta with Zed. I slept late today, and it's been amazing. I've been barely getting stuff done. I took a nap. It was great. Yeah. I goofed it. It's okay though. I'm Basileus. Okay, so again, you don't have to watch any of the previous episodes to get what we're going to talk about tonight. Where do you go when there's a hurricane? The center part of your house, or if it's bad enough, as far north as you can get. Ban me for my goof up? I mean, I can ban myself, I guess. There you are. Ban! Hey, Half Design, how's it going? Okay, so to start talking about Alexander, we've got to back up a little bit, and we have to remind ourselves of some pertinent developments inside the Greek world that happened just before all of this stuff. So the most pertinent is the string of wars that we usually refer to as the Peloponnesian Wars, where the allies of Athens and Athens had really big arguments and wars against the Spartans and their allies, and this left Greece in pretty bad shape. The Persians were involved in this a little bit. They came in at the end to help out the Spartans win. The Spartans did win. It caused a little bit of chaos, and because both Athens and Sparta were in such bad shape, another city called Thebes ends up actually kind of taking over the driver's seat of most of the Greek city-states. And all of this stuff is going to happen in the very late part of the 400s BC. And we're going to pick up in 359 BC. Brittany said all infractions. Fair is fair. Yeah, if you ban me, I guess we can just call it a night, and I can say that I talked about Thebes. You have tried. Twitch gives you a message that you can't ban the channel owner. Unban Basileus. Oh, if you can get to it, I can wait. But why did Alexander of Macedon burn Thebes? Oh, we'll talk about that tonight. And the answer is they wouldn't straighten up. But we'll get there. So before we talk about Alexander, we got to talk about his dad. His dad's name is Philip II. And it's also helpful for us to talk a little bit about Macedon itself. So if we look at the map here, this is the Balkan Peninsula, of course, Balkans, and these down here are kind of the traditional Greek city-states that you would think of, like Corinth and Sparta and Athens. So this region down here is mostly the old, kind of original, like OG Greek cities. And they had expanded into this region right here, which is called Thessaly, with colonies, and then up into here. But right around here, in this kind of little pocket right around here, is the Kingdom of Macedon. And then there's another group over here called the Illyrians, and there's another one's called the Thracians. R.I.P. Philip. Yeah, all these people are dead, so... but right around in here, you're going to find the Macedonians. And the Macedonians are people that are sometimes involved with the Greek world, sometimes involved with their own things. During the Persian invasions, the Macedonians had been put under first vassalage or vassaldom of the Persians, and then actually conquered and ruled by a Persian satrap for a little while. Of course, the Greek city-states down south did not get conquered. They were successful in fighting off the Persians, but the Macedonians were stuck under Persian rule for a little while. They did not really like that very much. The Kingdom of Macedon had, like I said, it had some dealings, most notably with trade. They fought sometimes against the Greeks, sometimes with the Greeks. It depends on, kind of which way the wind blows, and how best their kings thought that they could get away with stuff. There was a regional dialect of Macedonian. By the time we get to Alexander the Great, he is going to impose that everybody should speak the good old-fashioned Greek language. The Kingdom of Macedon had its own set of, politics. It was its thing. It was just a country. It was in the Greek orbit. It had conflicts with the Greeks. Not everybody liked them. But Philip has this bit of an idea. So Philip kind of has this concept that the rest of those Greek cities down there were really kind of playing a dumb game. They were beating each other up. They were going to war with each other. And what they really needed to do was kind of straighten up and act right, and all kind of line up and focus in the same way. Yeah, I mean, right, exactly. The Peloponnesian War had proven that the Greeks just didn't get along. So Philip is like, all you jerks need to get in line, because Persia's not gone, right? Persia's still just right here. Because all of these colonies over in this area, these Ionians, had basically been given back to Persia when the Athenians kind of rolled over on them. The Spartans had some limited control over that region for a little while, but the Persians are still big and they're still right there. So if you all are going to keep bloodying each other's eyes and noses and, kicking each other to pieces, it's just not so good. So Philip is going to take this opportunity, because of this sort of weakening moment in the inter-Greek situation, to start expanding. I could show you a picture of him. Okay, so there is Philip. He's a handsome guy. Philip II. Look at there. Nice looking dude. He has... Don't make me stop this car. Right. I'll turn this peninsula around. all of you Greeky people. So Philip decides he's going to put the Greek world together. And there's a little bit of an issue with this because, well, first off, the Greeks don't like being dominated by anybody, right? They don't like being dominated by, these foreign powers. They don't like being dominated by other city-states. And they're not going to like being dominated by the Macedonians because, well, we don't want other people running our stuff. But Philip is not really going to take no for an answer. He's a pretty competent military leader. And one of the things that he's going to do that really has a pretty big impact on how the Macedonians are going to fight as opposed to the Greeks is that he's going to reorganize the phalanx structure. So the typical Greek phalanx was a 10 by 10 unit. The Macedonians are going to expand that to a 16 by 16 to make a 256-man unit. Philip is also going to change the shields that they use. So the typical Greek soldier, the soldiers of the Greek people were called hoplites, and this is actually named after their shield, which is called the hoplon, which, is kind of neither here nor there. But Philip wants his units to be faster. He wants them to be able to be more mobile. And so he's going to select a smaller shield, and he's also going to take less armor. Greeks were an unimportant rural tribe of shepherds and Ephrates. Competent diplomat. He was a very competent diplomat. The Greeks call themselves Greek at this point. They call themselves Hellenes. Hellenes. The word Greek is actually left over from Latin. So like if you go to the country of Greece today, their money doesn't say Greece on it. It refers to themselves as the Hellenes or Hellenic people. So that's one of those things where America and the West calls people stuff, and that's not really what they're actually called. Like Japan is not actually called Japan. Like if you go to Japan, they don't call themselves the Japanese. So like the name of Japan is Nihon. In America, we call the people from the Netherlands the Dutch. But nobody else calls them the Dutch. Like, where did we get Dutch from, right? There we go. I didn't know you could put Greek letters in the little chat there, but I guess it works. Oh, I've seen people put Cyrillic in there before, so I guess you can put all sorts of languages in there. Anyway, Philip is going to reorganize the phalanx, makes it a larger unit. He changes the shields and the armor, and he's also going to change the weapons. And this is actually pretty important here. He changes the weapons that the people use from the typical Greek spear to this thing called a sarissa. And this is kind of a Macedonian twist on the more Greek spear. Here's a guy carrying a replica sarissa. And as you can see, this is a pretty honking big spear here. I get it wouldn't be the same word, the cultural identity. So that is it's a more difficult than yes or no question. So the Greek city-states recognized that they had a common history. They weren't all universally... They had individual concepts of where their cities came from. Some of their cities, they said, came from this group of Greeks. Some of these cities came from the Dorian Greeks. Some of these came from these other regions. So they had independent histories, but they recognized that they had a shared culture that was mostly expressed through their shared language, their shared religion, and their architecture, so stuff like that. So yes, they all recognized if you were a Greek, you knew you were a Greek, you were a Hellen, but every city sort of also had its own little flavor. You call that a spear? Yeah, so this thing is the sarissa, and this is also the smaller shield that the Macedonian soldiers would carry. This was actually carried on a bit of a strap that went across your shoulder, so you could kind of prop it up on your elbow like this and use both hands to wield this giant flippin' tree thing. So the sarissa is about 14 feet long, and if you can tell, it actually breaks here in the middle. So it's got sarissas. It's a big spear. I can't remember. I don't know where I dropped off or what I was talking about when I dropped off, or the last thing that actually caught when I said it. But he uses big spears. It changes the way that the Macedonians fight. And the Macedonians are going to be able to take that to the Greeks. I said it was a 14-foot spear. Okay. It breaks down in the middle. It's got a metal sheath. And you break this stuff down in the middle and you kind of throw it over your shoulder and carry it around. And then when you get ready to fight, you plunk it back together and you go off to do the stabby stuff. This reinvention of the phalanx is what's going to give Philip his edge, and this is what he's going to use to go beat up the rest of the Greek people. Well, not all of the Greek people, but he's going to beat up some Greek people. And when he starts working to consolidate his territory, the first places that he's going to go are actually over here in the region around him to Illyria. Macedon's kind of sitting right here, and there are other little kingdoms over here. There's a kingdom of Epirus, and then there's this kind of region around in here called Illyria, and this is Thrace, and then this is Thessaly, and then here are the Greek city-states down here. Folds out, stabs enemy, folds back, eats grapes and olives. Exactly. He's going to start fighting against the Illyrians. He's going to beat the Illyrians. He's going to marry an Illyrian to sort of seal the deal. But the Athenians are going to get involved in this because Athens doesn't like the idea of another player on the field. And Athens still had a pretty big navy at the time, and they had a lot of contacts in this area because of colony cities that they had established. But Philip is undeterred. He defeats the Athenian attempts to stop his expansion. He's going to gain access to some cities like Amphipolis, which has really big gold mines, which is the gold mines aren't actually in Amphipolis. They're in a mountain that's near Amphipolis, but you don't need to know that stuff. So he's going to keep expanding. He marries a couple of other wives. He ends up with 5 by the end of the thing. So this is another thing that the Greeks kind of looked at the Macedonians and they're like, what's up with all this wives thing? Like, you guys, what's up with all the wives? Most of the Greek city-states had kind of monogamous relationship things going on. You didn't really see a lot of Greek city-states where men had multiple wives. But, here's Philip. He's already got 3 wives. And then he marries another one who's actually from Epirus, this region over here, which was a separate kingdom. It's where the Greeks said that the Greeks first showed up. It's a pretty cool place. There's a big city out there called Dodona, which is one of the oldest... it's a temple complex, actually. It's not just one temple, but there's an oracle out there. There's a big temple to Zeus out there. One of the oldest oracles in all of the mainland of Greece. There's also an oracle of the dead, where you can go talk to dead people. So there's that. That's a place called the Necromantion. I went to that a couple of summers ago. It's pretty nice. They've got a church on top of it now, but there's still a big hole in the ground. So anyway, I can chase rabbits about this, by the way. Adventure hat? We will see the adventure hat in not too long. It will make an appearance. I will have adventure hat moments tonight. So yeah. But from Epirus, Philip, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Thank you, Kilda Chaver, for the host, and welcome. Hope you're having a good night. Philip gets another wife. This wife's name is Olympias, and this is going to be an important lady because she is going to have a son pretty quick, just as long as you get your ears back. It said lend me your ears, not give me your ears. Olympias is the wife that will give Philip Alexander. So this is Alexander's mom. And she looks like this. Well, not like the spear. She looks like this. This is Olympias. Unfold spear. It's time to poke Greeks and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Anyway, so this is Olympias. Again, this is the fourth wife of Philip, Olympia Dukakis. Not the same. Not the same. He's going to continue expanding. She is very shiny. Philip is going to take one of the Greek cities in this region of what would have that time been kind of the border between Greece and Thessaly, and he's going to rename it after himself, called Philippi. So if you've ever heard of the Philippians or the city of Philippi, it's actually named after this guy. He's going to continue expanding. He's going to take the Thracian coastal cities, which are right around in here. There's going to be a big fight over here at Byzantium, which was kind of a podunk city at the time. It was definitely not Constantinople at that point. But he's going to move slowly but surely down this coastline and establish himself as the regional power there. So he's moving in both directions. He's kind of got this big chunk under his control. These gold mines from places like Amphipolis are really, really helping because this is giving him a giant money base that he can use to kind of fuel his expansion. There's only one really big Greek city at the time period left, right around here. It's called Olynthus. I'm sorry, Olynthus, not Olyntheus. I'm thinking Olympias. All of these Greek words. It's all Greek to me. Anyway, Olynthus is the last big Greek holdout. Philip manages to take it after a pretty big battle and a pretty long, drawn-out siege. This is going to put him in pretty much the driver's seat at that point, because all of these regions up here that had ties back to the Greeks were now more or less under his control. This is going to limit the ability of the Greeks to get involved in Macedonian business. And he's going to use this towards his advantage. He's going to expand up this direction. He's going to move over here and take Epirus. He's going to take the rest of Thrace, not just the coastal region. So kind of up, let me zoom out a little bit, kind of up into this region, and adds basically this big strip right here of the Balkan Peninsula to his territory. And he's even going to come over here into Ionia and start trying to get some of these Greek colony cities that were under the control of either Persians or Persian satraps to kind of switch back over to the side of the Greeks. There's going to be a lot of fighting going on over here. He doesn't get a lot of headway, mostly just right around in this region, enough to kind of hold the territory, but not too far into Asia Minor. He's going to start moving down then and actually start taking the Greeks directly. And there's a little bit of a mix here. So sometimes these Greeks, when they're looking at Philip, they see him as a Macedonian, and they're like, we don't want Macedon to run ourselves. We don't. You keep your weird regional dialects and multi-wived having people up where you come from. We don't really dig you. Now, other Greeks kind of understand this idea that Philip is spreading, this concept of a unified front against the Persians. So some of the Greeks are going to be kind of willing to toss in with Philip's side. Some of them don't really like Philip or don't really like the Macedonians in general and do it mostly because they're afraid of them, but there is going to be some pretty stout resistance. Philip is a great personality. Before taking Epirus, please ask your doctor if it's right for you. What were the allied group city-states of Greece right as Philip came in? So at that point, there were lots of really small leagues. The sort of big universal leagues of like the Delian League and the Peloponnesian League, those had all sort of crumbled at the end of the Peloponnesian Wars. So there was a League of Corinth and some cities around it. There was a League of Chalcis, which is out on the... let me zoom in a little bit more here and I can show you where some of this stuff is. So Chalcis sits right about here on this big island of Euboea. They had a small league of allies. Corinth sits right here at the end of this isthmus, and it had a little league of it. So it was mostly just kind of regional leagues. You didn't have like the big sort of super teams anymore. That had kind of gone away at the end of the Peloponnesian War. So there were leagues out there, but they weren't like they weren't the Avengers. It's more like the buddy cop movies, if that makes any sense. So Philip is going to keep on going. There's going to be a big battle at a place called Chaeronea. And this is going to be a pretty big battle. It's in a region called Boeotia, which is all these Greek regions. I'm sure everybody like intimately knows Greek geography. It's kind of this region right here. And this is going to be a pretty big deal because at that point, Philip was already way down into what was, Greece. The Greek city-states had run this region by themselves for a long, long time. So Philip being down here is a pretty big deal. And when he wins this battle here, that's going to kind of open up making deals with these other people. And the Corinthian League here is going to recognize that Philip is probably going to come for them next. They were the next biggest city in the region. They were a smaller target than Athens. So, if you're trying to pick people off one at a time, you don't necessarily always go for the biggest and the strongest. Sometimes you kind of nibble around the edges. So Corinth is like, look, why don't we just see what we can do? If this guy's legit and he's upfront about fighting the Persians and really kind of putting the Greeks together, maybe we can deal with the Macedonian running all of this Greek stuff. Let's just kind of let him have his way for a little bit. And they kind of vote Philip in to the Corinthian League, and he kind of takes over. And there's a great, great moment in history at this point where kind of from the meeting here of Corinth, remember that down here in this region, we have the good old-fashioned Spartans, who are still big and very scary. And there's this great moment that's recorded in a couple of different stories where Philip sends a message to the Spartans. And it basically says, if I march my armies down to your city, I'm going to destroy all of your land. Yeah, and Half Design already knows where we're going because the Spartans sent back a one-word answer, and that answer was, if. Right? So he tries to punk the Spartans, and the Spartans are like, psh, come on. Philip pretty wisely does not go down and try to fight the Spartans. So he decides, okay, well, you stay down there on your part of the Peloponnese, and we'll go do our thing. And so Philip kind of returns to Macedon, in his capital city, and he decides that he wants to marry another wife. This would be lucky wife number 5. And he has wife number 5, and then he starts trying to get some of his kids married off. And at a wedding, Philip is actually assassinated. Oh, whoa, I missed a part. When Philip was expanding to the south and at the Battle of Chaeronea, he had Alexander with him. So he was kind of grooming Alexander to take over, and he had actually given Alexander control of like this entire wing of the Macedonian army. But when he got back home, there was some internal arguing between the new wives and Olympias and Alexander, because these new wives didn't really like the fact that they weren't being chosen, right? So here's the thing about Alexander. They made a case against him that he wasn't actually fully Macedonian because his mom was from Epirus. So he wasn't Macedonian enough. And Alexander was, clearly the favorite of Philip at that point. But Philip is persuaded to exile Alexander and Olympias in favor of the child from his Macedonian wife, who was full Macedonian. So, yeah. Foreshadowing his demise. Right. Well, what ends up happening, they fix all of this stuff, and Alexander ends up coming back. But you can tell that he's kind of got a chip on his shoulder for this. And at one of these weddings, Philip gets assassinated, and it's by one of his own bodyguards. And there is a lot of swirling question marks here about who killed him. Well, I mean, we know who killed him. We know the name of the guy that killed him because it's recorded in history. But why did one of these guys kill him? Was he set up? Was he encouraged? Was he paid off? Was there some sort of intrigue? Did Olympias maybe get sick of Philip being a jerk and listening to all of the other wives and decided to just knock him off because she knew that Alexander was going to be able to take over? Well, there we go. It's as our world turns, right? It's the soap opera of the Macedonians. Most people don't think that Alexander was directly involved with this, but Olympias is a different story. She does some stuff later on that proves she has kind of a darker, schemy, poisony, stabby side. So, did Olympias kill Philip or have him killed? That's a fair question. So, I mean, and it could be that Alexander knew, but we can't really tell. We don't know. There's not enough evidence there. So, Philip, gone. But they do bury him in a big old tomb. So I get to put on the adventure hat because I'm going to talk about Philip's tomb. Ba-dum-ba-dum. For those of you that don't know, this is the adventure hat. I bring it with me when I travel because I need protection from the sun. And when I'm on stream and I talk about places that I have been or stuff that I have seen with my own eyeballs, I wear the adventure hat. And I could have probably worn it a few times earlier tonight, but it's more like passing references. I'm actually about to show you a photo here. How old was Alexander at that point? Old enough to have been involved. So, I mean, 19-year-olds, not the least schemy people. All right. So again, this is Olympias. And this place, this is the tumulus of Philip. And it is at a modern day location called Vergina in Greece. The ancient city is Aigai, which was the capital of the Macedonian kingdom. So this thing that we're looking at right here is actually a false hill. And inside of it, there are all sorts of really cool tombs that they have excavated. And I would love to show you all the pictures that I took of them, but you can't take pictures inside. They have people walking around that will literally follow you if they think you're taking pictures. You can Google some of this stuff and you can find some photos from the inside. You can find some photos of some of the stuff from the inside. Of all of the places that I went to in Greece, this and Knossos were what I felt to be kind of maybe the biggest touristy trap kind of places. It's very, very expensive to get in. Well, I don't know. It's cool stuff. You get to see stuff like this. This is a solid gold crown and solid gold box. There are fancy names for these things, but this is stuff from the inside. There's also a really great set of armor. I didn't want to show you all the pictures because we could be taking, 30 minutes to look at all the cool stuff that's from the inside of this. If you want to see more cool Macedonian stuff, Google Tomb of Philip, and you can pick through some previously selected and very clearly curated photos that they've let out to the world. It's a pretty cool place, but it's very, very expensive. It's like $20+ to get in, and it's not very big, and I really don't like that they don't let you take pictures. And some of the little placards that they put are a little bit biased, but so there's that. Let's look at a map. I love maps. This map is... Did Philip have to deal with the Scythians at all? He did. He did fight briefly with the Scythians. Alexander's going to as well. The Scythians at that point had not been a really big problem. The Persians had pretty severely limited the Scythian power base, and the Greek city-states that had been founded as colonies around the Black Sea had done a lot to kind of limit the Scythians. There were some Scythian stuff, especially up in this region up here, which would have been kind of traditional Scythian territory. But anyway, so here we go. So this is the kingdoms of the Greek world at the time of Philip's death. So we see here the actual kind of core of Macedonian territory. There's Olynthus, where that big battle was. We have Philippi that was brought over. Here's Amphipolis, where all that nice fancy gold was. And he's taken Thrace. He's taken Byzantium. He has moved down here into Thessaly. You can see here members of the League of Corinth. These are the people that would have joined Philip after the big battle here at Chaeronea. And notice here that he's putting garrisons in some of these cities like Thebes and Chalcis and Eretria and Corinth itself. This is to keep these people in line. He knows that they have their own politics and their own sort of, goals in mind. And if they could get one up on Philip, they were not beyond doing so. Notice, of course, neutral states, Sparta. Now, this actually is going to come back into play under Alexander a little bit, because there's a bit of a hubbub when it comes to the Spartans. So you can't really think the Spartans are just going to lie down and take domination, right? Bias regarding what? I didn't really like the way that they kind of push this idea that everybody in the Greek world just absolutely loved Philip and fell at his feet and kind of worshipped him. I think they were a little... I think they glossed over how much fighting Philip really had to do. The image that I came away with was that the people that had written the little placards and sort of the stories of Philip wanted me to walk out thinking that Philip was a universally loved, benign leader that just wanted everybody to get along, that never had to lift a hand against anybody, that appealed to everyone's favor, and everybody was just like, yeah! When in fact he had to go to war against all these people, and he killed lots of them, and there were big old battles, and he wiped out, whole chunks of their populations. So, Philippilia. There we go. Philippilia. Yeah. I'm sorry. That was just too many letters like this, and my brain did not want to interpret that. They were very philophile, yes. So Philip is Cyrus. No, I don't think I could go that far. Alexander thought he was Cyrus and really looked up to Cyrus. So let's talk about Alexander. So first off, what's going on with this guy as a kid? So he's a kid. He's growing up in Macedon. His dad has this idea that everybody should really love this Greek culture stuff, and he's bringing in all this Greek culture stuff, and he's trying to get everybody in Macedon to straighten up and act Greek. Alexander? Who? Right. So one of the things that Alexander ends up getting is a really good Greek education. And this is from his dad's point of view. And if you're going to raise the kid to be a good Greek, you got to teach him like a Greek, right? So Philip reaches out to lots of different people that are very big philosophers and teachers at the time. And he settles on Aristotle. And Aristotle comes from Athens, comes up to the region of Macedon, starts teaching Alexander. And of course, by all accounts of the ancient world, Alexander is this super child prodigy that masters everything immediately. I mean, pretty clearly he's a smart kid. What did you think was buried in the latest discovered Amphipolis tomb? I think they've determined that it was kind of a warrior, but I'm not sure. Are you talking about the one that they thought for a little while might be Roxanne's tomb? Because I think that they dug that one up in like 2014 or 2013. And I know that they've found another one recently that's kind of north of Virginia. And I think that they've determined at this point that it was just a pretty wealthy governor or somebody that might have been a warrior of some sort. I haven't looked at that honestly since last summer. I was hoping I could go see it last summer, and of course they didn't have it ready to go into. So, okay. Smart kid, learns a lot, fights with his dad, hangs out. But when Philip dies, there's a big old rebellion. And a lot of the places that Philip had taken are going to take this opportunity to go, okay, well, he's gone now. And there's this young punk kid that's going to take over, and we don't need this guy. So in order to kind of prove himself, Alexander kind of has to go run around and beat up a lot of the same people his dad did. And this is when Thebes comes back into play. So let me get rid of Philip. He's dead. I also have a picture of young Alexander that I can show you. Where am I? There we go. Look at that guy. Aw, he doesn't even have a beard yet. Little baby face. So Alexander has to go run around, pacify some of these people. He has to fight some of these people again. And one of the cities that was causing a lot of trouble was the city of Thebes. And this is a city that had, prior to Philip's expansion, kind of been in the driver's seat of the Greek city-states. Had kind of been the powerhouse city. And Alexander decides that they need to be taught a lesson. And so they had kind of rebelled a little bit to the point of pulling their army back together after Philip died. And Alexander marches down and fights them off. And he does this really kind of sneaky, underhanded thing. He calls a lot of the smaller cities that are around Thebes together, and he's like, you all have been mistreated by Thebes. And they're all like, yeah, for a long time. And he's like, what do you think I should do as a fair punishment to them? And they're like, burn that joker down and kill all their soldiers. And Alexander is like, oh yeah, that seems wise. Let's do that. So bye-bye Thebes. Thebes is a pretty city today. Stayed in a very nice hotel there. Had some good breakfast. It's a pretty little place. Right on the side of the mountains. Well, that's... Lots of places in Greece are right on the side of the mountains. Dun 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 dun. Hey, Top Shelf Creations. Thank you for the follow, and welcome to the adventure. Hope you're having a good day. Feel free to ask questions, make bad jokes, throw some puns out, make yourself at home. My stream is your stream, until you get out of hand, but I don't think you will. I've seen you around. Was in a stream with you maybe earlier today. Were you in Sosa Demonis' stream earlier today? Maybe so. Indiana Jones sound. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, so Alexander has to beat up some people, but he also plays the diplomacy card. He plays to this idea that the Balkan Peninsula needs to stand together, that they have to be a unified front. They have to kind of go fight Persia directly. Yes, it was an Indiana Jones sound. I just have I had the volume turned down a little bit. But yes, that was the end of Indiana Jones. Dun 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 dun. Xerxes set up a massive campaign to feed his troops and engineers to take Greece. What supply sort of have against Persia? Great question. Number one, he had lots of money because, again, once the Macedonians took some of these big mining cities that were producing gold and silver, he's going to have lots of money on that stuff. And he's going to kind of lean on some of these Greek allies that both he and his father have made. Especially kind of once Athens comes around and they kind of recognize that they were maybe being jerks about the whole thing. And, well, they don't really like the idea of answering to a Macedonian, but, it's better than dying to Persia like they had been doing for a long time. So he doesn't have the same, gigantic empire to pull from. The Persians had, territory for 3 continents to pull from, and he didn't have that, but he had a pretty good supply network. We'll actually talk about that straining out a little while. So he promises to defeat Persia. He's going to fight some battles in Greece and kill some Greeks and get them all to kind of line up behind him. And then the next trip is got to jump the Bosphorus, and we're going to go over here to Asia Minor. There's a really big battle called the Battle of Granicus. It's in 334 BC. And the Persians, the Persian satraps that were in the region kind of got taken by surprise. But this is going to be a pretty big deal because when Alexander wins at the Battle of Granicus, this is the first of kind of 3 really big battles that Alexander has versus the Persians. When he wins at Granicus, he's able to take Sardis, which was originally the old capital of the Kingdom of Lydia, but it was the Persian satrap capital, and it's also where a lot of their money was. So this money issue is going to be a good thing because with money comes the ability to buy stuff, right? Like food and supplies and such. So winning at Granicus was a big deal. They take Sardis, which was a big deal, and they're going to start moving down the Ionian coast. So all of these cities that had originally been founded by Greek expansion way back in like the 700s and 600s BC are going to hail Alexander as a liberator most of the time. Some of these cities had gone pretty Persian, especially big cities like Miletus, which sat right about here. Miletus was a really big port city. It was a very populated location, and it was where a lot of the big Persian leadership was, and the city didn't want to roll over. So there was this really long siege at Miletus, and Alexander kind of has to bloody their nose a lot and really punish them when he gets done. But after Miletus, this is going to kind of be the last big holdout of this Asia Minor region, well, of this Ionia region, before he turns to Asia Minor proper. So all of these kingdoms over here, like the Kingdom of Gordia, which is one of the things that's already come up here in the chat. The Kingdom of Gordian is right around in here. I'm missing stuff. Yep. So there's this there's a city of Gordia. This way back in time, if you've ever heard of King Midas, he was a king of Gordia. you can still go see a lot of their cities over there. Well, not a lot, but a couple of them. You can go to what's called Midas City, which is remains of a big Gordian city. Anyway, they had this big knot, and you go, what the devil were we talking about here? This is what's known as the Gordian knot, one of the more famous stories of Alexander's life. The stories kind of tell us that it was made out of like leather strips that had been soaked in water and then tied into this really big knot and pulled really, really tight and then kind of left to dry in the sun so that it was effectively impossible to undo. And the story here is that there was this prophecy that whomever could untie this knot was destined to be the king of all of Asia. And the people of Gordia didn't really care too much for Alexander. They had been pretty close to the Persians for a while. And so they kind of say, oh, well, you know, if you want to rule us, you kind of have to go take care of this knot problem. And he walks up to it and looks at it and he's like, so all I got to do is untie this. And they're like, yeah. And he chops it in half with his sword. And he's like, all right, line up. We're going to go fight Persia. And the story is included in Alexander's biography as a neat little way of telling you that he thinks outside the box. He's got multi-dimensional thought processes going on here. So he's going to wrap up pretty quickly and take most of Asia Minor within a year. Yeah, Milita's surprised Pikachu face. Yeah, like... Anyway, so he's going to wrap up most of Asia Minor between 334 and 333, and he's going to start looking down this way. Yeah. But the Persians were coming to try to stop him, and there's a big battle at a place called Issus in 333, and the Persian king himself is going to come out to fight Alexander. The Persian king at the time was Darius III, who is depicted here very famously in a... good gracious, my words are missing me. This is a very famous piece of artwork. Alexander is in it too. He's on the other side. This is currently in a big museum in Naples in Italy, but this is Darius III, the head of the Persian army. So Darius comes out to fight. This is a big deal because at this point in history, Persia was basically undefeated when the king was present. If the king's going to show up to the battle, they're going to bring their A game, right? This is putting in the starters. We're going to run up the score on you. But Alexander beats them. He plays this sneaky game where he organizes his people on the field in such a way that the Persians really don't know exactly what he's going to do. And they kind of spread their forces out pretty thinly as well. And then Alexander takes the field himself and leads the heavy infantry of the Macedonians and runs right down the middle of the Persian formation and almost catches Darius. Hey, lumpy dragon potato. Hey, how's it going? This timeline for all this is insane. He came and he conquered. Yeah, he really did. But Alexander hates football, thus he crushed the Persians. Right. Stupid football. So, at the Battle of Issus, Alexander is going to win, and this is big because the Persians don't lose with the king present. So Darius is actually forced to flee, and he's going to have to take a lot of his people with him. And this is going to open up a lot of territory for Alexander to spread. And so spread he does. And he starts moving down what used to be the old coastline of the Phoenician region, and he finds a big city right about here called Tyre. Tyre was a really big walled city, very, very ancient city, very big population, had no interest in laying down for Alexander. So there's a really long siege for about a year in 332, but when Tyre falls, Alexander makes an example out of them like he did with Thebes. He killed every man that was of military age and he sold all the women of the city into slavery. Basically saying, this is what happens if you make me siege you. And when that happens, well, guess what? He moves through the rest of the Levantine region pretty quickly. Everybody else is like, don't want to fight him. Now, there are some battles, but it's much easier. Everybody knows what he did to Tyre, and nobody wants to be that person. Until he gets to Giza, down here in Egypt. Because, hey, if you're already right there, why not take Egypt? Because, I mean, it's Egypt. It's friggin' huge. It's full of people. It's full of lots of food and crazy amounts of money. Plus, it's ancient as junk, and everybody wants to be the cool guy that says, I rule that place. So, let's invade Egypt. Well, there's a big siege at Giza. Down here, out by the pyramids, there's a big old siege. And Alexander takes Egypt. And what's crazy about this is the Egyptians hated the Persians anyway, and they had been rebelling against the Persians for a long time. And they see Alexander as a sort of a savior. They're like, hey, great, we don't have to be under Persian control anymore. This is amazing. No, now they're going to be under Macedonian control because Alexander is going to become pharaoh. And he actually goes through the whole ceremony, and he has the big hat. And I'm realizing right now that I should have pulled photographs of Alexander wearing the pharaoh getup from wall reliefs on temples that we have. And I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't do that. Phoenicians had conflicting interests with the Greeks. They made all of their wealth through the Persian Empire. Oh, yeah. I mean, the Phoenicians had been making money on the sea since the collapse of the Bronze Age, and they were kind of ahead of the Greeks in the fleet thing and the trading thing. Well, I mean, the Greeks learned a lot of their stuff, like their alphabet and their, to a certain extent, their shipbuilding and the big trade game from the Phoenicians. So yeah, there's a conflict there. And that's Alexandria, and that's Alexandria. I feel like Half Design could probably could pick up if the stream goes dead again. Everybody just follow Half Design. Half Design will lead you and continue my goal of unifying this history of Alexander. And hopefully you don't end up killing Half Design and then dividing my stream contents amongst yourselves. Holy cats! What did the Ptolemy family think about that? He installed the Ptolemy family because Ptolemy was one of his generals. At that point, the Egyptians were under the control of the Persians. So this is where Greek-run Egypt is going to start because it becomes part of Alexander's larger, kind of wider world. Of course, he's going to found Alexandria, of course, a big flippin' city out here that we don't really have very much remnants of, but Alexandria, founded by Alexander, like Half Design said, all of these big cities are going to be named Alexandria, except for the ones named after victory. So lots of cities called Nicaea, and at least one city named after his horse, but that's all the way over in India. So not Alexandria in Virginia. No. He did not expand that far. Though if he knew that the New World was over there, I would wonder if he would think about trying to invade it. Yes, Bucephalus. So there's a city in India called, I think it's Bucephalia or Bucephalia or something like that. It's over in India. His horse died when it was apparently 30 years old at that point. Bucephalus means ox-headed. And the story behind that was that when Alexander was a very young boy, there was this horse merchant that came through Macedonia, and he had these horses that nobody could tame. And Alexander looked at this horse and was like, I want that horse. And his dad was like, you can't tame, nobody can tame that horse. And Alexander was like, I'm going to tame that horse. And there's this really famous quote where Philip looked at young little Alexander and he's like, you need to get out of Macedonia because this kingdom's not big enough for your ambition. So Bucephalus was Alexander's horse, and this was a very near and dear thing to Alexander. And apparently the horse lived for 30 years. I don't know the actual lifespan of an average horse, but that's a long-lived horse. History spoiler, And he did leave Macedonia. Yeah, there's lots of those little twists and little fun nuggets of stuff in there, right? Almost like some of it was maybe written after he did. But who knows? Anyway, so with Egypt taken, and the Levant taken, and Asia Minor taken, well, guess what's left? We're going to zoom out. What's left is the Persians. And Alexander decides it's time to go get them. It's time. We're going to go get them. And this comes to a head at a battle called Gaugamela. Gaugamela. This is in 331. Google says 25 to 30. There we are. Love his camp quote from Plutarch regarding Darius. So pretty up there, but within regular margins. Dum da dum, dum da dum dum, dum da dum dum dum. Thank you, Jams Gaming TV, and welcome to the adventure. Hope you're having a good one. Feel free to chat, throw some stuff in the chat if you want, hang out, make bad puns, or just lurk. It's all cool. We're talking about Alexander the Great and the Battle of Gaugamela. So this is like Alexander v. Darius round 2. And this one doesn't go very good for Darius either. Alexander is going to outflank him again. And actually, the story here goes that Alexander saw Darius in the fray, like through the battle. And he threw a spear, and it flew right past Darius's face, and then Darius saw Alexander and saw the fury in his eyes and was like, "We gotta go!" Hey, Life of Mamba. So Darius is on the run, and the Persians are not doing so great because it's time to get Darius. And Alexander starts chasing Darius basically on a tour through central Persia. And he's going to be conquering along the way. But one of Darius's satraps, this guy named Bessus, is actually going to catch Darius and kill him. And the story goes that Bessus thought one of two things. Either I will kill this guy and then I will take over the Persian Empire. Or I will kill this guy and I'll go, "Look, Alexander, I killed Darius." And he'll try to play it kind of which one he thinks is best. Well, the story goes, Bessus actually does decide he is now the king of Persia. But Alexander supposedly arrives to the scene to find a dying Darius, who then on his deathbed leaves the throne of Persia to Alexander. Wink, wink. Right? Like, "Oh, such a great and worthy enemy. You have conquered me. I recognize your awesomeness. You should just take my kingdom when I die." Hollywood death before yeah. When are you going to stream Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? I need a Carmen Sandiego hat. Yes, as one does. Exactly. So Bessus is now the guy to chase. And Bessus runs up into Central Asia, all of the regions that we would call, or that I would refer to as the stands. So over here in Pakistan, into Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. So Alexander is chasing Bessus all over this area. Stand means land of. It does. So all of these lands of, the Uzbeks and the Tajiks and the Kazakhs. Kazakhstan's been in the news lately since there's been another Borat movie. It's better than the first one. I'll just tell you that. So if you saw the first one and were like, "That was horrible," the second one's not as bad. Anyway, Alexandria Escate comes from this region. It's in modern-day Tajikistan, right around here. This is what's called furthest Alexandria. So at this point, Alexander is just kind of making up names like Alexandria by the river, Alexandria in Egypt, Alexandria on the mountain, and this one is Alexandria the furthest out there. No joke. Alexandria Escate. Way out here. You liked both, but the second one had a tighter script. It did. I agree. So he ends up finding Bessus betrayed by another old Persian satrap. And at that point, Bessus gets the kill. Gets whacked. And at that point, Persia was pretty much gone. Now, there's still some territory down here and some territory over here that Alexander hadn't directly conquered, but he had all the big cities. He had the capital cities. He had Susa. He had Persepolis. He had Ecbatana. He had Babylon. He had all the big cities of the Persians. And at that point, he's kind of like the king of the world, right? Just to be honest, this dude was like really strong. Wasn't there something with Macedonian horses in China? Yeah, so this is actually going to be the beginning of what is going to turn into the Silk Road. So the Chinese over here, at that point, it would have still been the end of the Warring States period. But the Han Dynasty is about to take over here in China, and they're going to start stretching this direction. And when they get over here, they're going to run into the leftovers of Alexander's kingdom. So the Silk Road runs right through this region and runs right into the back of Alexander's old territory. George Foreman is probably descended. They burned Persepolis. Yeah, they did. They burned a lot of stuff, but they also preserved a lot of stuff. There was the tomb of Cyrus, Cyrus the Great. They left alone. There's this great story where Alexander is walking through a Persian city and he sees this statue of Xerxes, the old Persian king, and he looks down at this statue that's fallen over on its side, and he talks to the statue. He says something to the tune of, and you know, all of this stuff is in translation. You can go read it. Something to the tune of, "Should I stand you up because you were a military genius, or should I leave you lying in the dirt because of what you did to the Greeks and to the Macedonians?" So nice little kind of a vignette there. They did trash Cyrus's tomb, but that's after. That's after Alexander is coming back from India. When he gets back and he finds Cyrus's tomb trashed, yeah, he kills a whole bunch of people and makes his artists go fix everything. Even the city of Magdabonum. That's Warhammer 40k. Wait, that was you? Anyway, so there's a bit of a shift here because Alexander basically is running all of Persia now. And this is going to be a shift that a lot of his men recognize because he starts acting like the Persians. He picks up a lot of the habits that the old Persian emperors would use. For example, the idea that when he walked into a room, everybody was supposed to bow down on their knees or kiss his hands. And a lot of people really didn't like that. Hey, What Champ, how's it going? A lot of people are like, dude, you're not Persian. You know this, right? You're Macedonian. And there's a big sea change in the tone of Alexander's rule around this point because he's so far away from Macedonia. He's starting to basically run out of Macedonian troops and Greek troops that he can pull over from that far away. And there's a big need for manpower. And here's all those Persian soldiers. And he had been adding foreign soldiers to his army as he's gone, but the core of his army had always been Macedonian. And the leadership of his army had always been either Macedonian or Greek. But here are all these Persian generals too. And these people are smart. They're tactical. They're very well knowledged of the region. They have a lot more geographic experience with the people in the region. So does he let these people into the inner circle? And a lot of people are worried that he's going to end up kind of betraying his Macedonian and Greek ideas. Kiss the hand. Yeah, not COVID. This is not social distancing aware. All right, Mitchie, have a good night, man. Take it easy. See you around. It's good to see you. Thanks for hanging out for as long as you can. Hope you get good sleep, my friend. So the Greeks really, really hate this new kind of tone in Alexander. And there are going to be some plots against his life. And none of them are successful. But in the first one, Alexander kind of plays the hand a little bit wrong. He is suspicious that one of his generals, a guy named Philotas, knew about the assassination attempt and didn't do anything to stop it. And this is going to be problematic because if a Greek or a Macedonian knew about a plot to kill Alexander and they didn't do anything about it, that makes them a traitor. And there's this whole scene where there's a trial for Philotas, and he was a Macedonian, Philotas was. And there's a lot of like really harsh words exchanged between Alexander and Philotas, and it basically, Alexander accuses him of treachery and has him killed. And then he also has Philotas' father killed. And his father had been one of these people that had been trusted to guard one of these Persian cities, Ecbatana, which was a really big city full of a whole ton of money. It used to be the capital of the Median Empire. So there's a kind of a sour taste in some of these people's mouths. And there's a point where one of Alexander's generals gets a little too drunk at a party. This guy's name is Cletus. And he gets kind of drunk and he tells Alexander the truth. Like, look, dude, you're getting way too uppity. You're forgetting your roots. You're not doing things the right way. You're sucking up to these Persian people. You're like, for real, not supposed to do this junk. And this was a tough thing to hear because this guy Cletus had saved Alexander's life in a battle and had been promoted because of that. So this is a person that Alexander had a lot of kind of history with. So for this guy to, I mean, he was drunk when he was doing it, but, you know, in vino veritas, right? For this guy to be laying it out like this kind of embarrasses Alexander. And so he has to kill him now. Yeah. And then there's another assassination plot. There was a Greek guy that was a historian from Olynthus. And he had been brought with Alexander. This guy's name is Callisthenes. He decides that he wants to kind of kill Alexander and get rid of him. And that gets foiled. And so Alexander kind of has to have a moment where he kind of has a self-reflection. And he decides, incoming Alexander speech, yeah, he decides that he needs to change his attitude. Like that he had a moment, but he was a Macedonian and that he was going to stand with the Hellenic people and that he was going to do things the right way and that his you know, he had kind of gotten too big for his britches or his toga or whatever, but he was going to straighten up and everything was going to be fine. Hey, Magnificent, fire away. You don't have to ask, my friend. You can just throw them out there. You don't have to raise your hand. I see the little hand raise. That's great. So as this stuff is happening, there's also trouble back at home. Did they call him Alex in short? No. I don't think anybody called him Alex. How much credibility do all the contemporary accounts have? I mean, they're about politics by politicians of the time. Is it fake news? Oh, no. Fake news is not new. And most of the histories that we have about Alexander were written well after he was alive. In some cases, hundreds of years after he was alive. And by that point, there is obviously going to be some inflation, some embellishment of stuff, whether or not these speeches that he gave or all of these back and forths that they gave were word for word is a little bit suspect. But this is true of anybody reading history. Everybody on Earth has a bias. And if you got a little twingy when I said that everybody has a bias because that means you have a bias, the reason you got twingy is because you don't think you have a bias, which is a bias. The entire Bible is fake news? Oh, shots fired, Cave Geek. Shots fired. I won't comment on that. Having no bias is a bias, right? Or claiming that you have no bias is a bias. So a lot of these ancient accounts are almost certainly embellished, which is why we have to fall back on archaeology. And we have been able to back up a lot of this stuff. And another thing that we do is comparative source criticism. So you take all of the different accounts that were written from all of the different periods of time, and you sort of overlap them in a big Venn diagram. And the stuff that all of them talk about, we can probably rely on, because that means that it had become so widely accepted that it was almost, certainly to have happened. But when we find stuff archaeologically, that makes it better, because then we can compare physical evidence to written evidence and come up with a more full picture of what's going on. You have a big bias. I have a giant bias. I really do. But I'm not wearing the opinion hat, so that's not what I'm talking about. Anyway, there are problems back in Greece. Well, specifically back in Macedon. So way over here, back in Macedon, Alexander's mom is causing trouble. And it has to do with this guy, once I can get over to the picture. This guy. Does my bias look big when I say this? Only in that light. So this is a Greek dude named Antipater. And Antipater had been chosen to watch over the Greek territories, and especially Macedon, while Alexander was away. And Alexander had also left his mom there, Olympias, and these two did not get along very well in the least. And Alexander starts getting word from both of them that the other one is causing trouble and making issues and not running things the right way and da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. So Alexander has to pause a little bit and straighten up things back at home, and is like, both of you act like adults. Don't make me turn this invasion around and have to come home and straighten up my mom and the guy that I chose specifically to run things. Antipater, spelled like that. I'm sorry, like that. Antipater. Antipater. Alexander. Right, exactly. So he has to solve this argument and get that stuff straightened out. Also, during this period of time, Antipater has another trouble, because guess what? The Spartans have decided that Alexander's never coming back. He's going to die over there in Persia. So the Spartans lead a rebellion. Their king at the time decides, okay, we're going to rebel and we're going to try to liberate Greece from all these Macedonian guys. And so Antipater has to put down a rebellion of the Spartans, which of course is never fun or easy. So there's issues going on over there. Something against his father, perhaps. But there's also the problem that Macedonia and Macedon itself was really honestly being depopulated of men, because Alexander was drawing more and more. Now, he was sending back just gaboodles of money, which was really helping the economy. But there's only so fast that you can produce soldiers. And remember, all of this stuff is happening so quickly that people aren't coming of age fast enough. He's only really been gone at this point for about 6 years. And he's just spending lives like crazy. So he kind of has to start thinking about stuff in a different way. And he's going to have to proceed a little bit more carefully because his next big goal is this guy. India. And one of the ways that he's going to handle this a little bit differently is he's going to try diplomacy first. He's going to send a lot of messages to the people that used to be Persian satraps in this region. And he's going to tell them effectively, look, everybody knows that I can take you out. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just trying to tell you. If I come over there, I'm going to take you out. And the people over in this region aren't Spartans to respond with if. They know that he'll show up. A lot of these satraps have to kind of really take this in stride. And they go, okay, so yeah, we don't want you to come kill all of us. What's the deal? And the deal is, if you swear loyalty to me, I'll basically let you keep your territory. You can become my satrap, and I'll let you keep your, kind of your infrastructure. I might change some of your borderlines to suit me a little bit better, but you're mostly going to be able to stay intact. And a lot of these people that had been part of the larger Persian Empire, that had benefited a lot from Persian trade, see this as probably the best case scenario. They're effectively just going to switch out one overlord for another. And this Alexander guy was in a much stronger position than Darius III was. So a lot of these Indian satraps come over, and most importantly, they're going to bring with them their armies. And this is going to help a lot because, again, there are only so many soldiers to go around. And if Alexander wants to continue to expand, he's got to be much more careful with how he's spending his soldiers' lives. One of the kings does not agree very much at all. And this Indian king's name is Porus. And Porus kind of tells Alexander where to shove it and says, I'm done answering to foreign people. I'm going to be my own kingdom, and you can just take your stuff elsewhere. And Alexander is not going to take this very well, and so it's fighting time. And when Alexander invades, he's going to do this not necessarily reluctantly, but cautiously. And you'll see that there are lots of these little riverbeds around in here. And so he's going to come through this region right here, which is called the Khyber Pass, and get down into this region up today, which is in Pakistan or Punjab in India. And there's a big battle right about here at a place called the Hydaspes River. And this was one of these rivers that kind of separated boundary lines between satrapies and Persian territory or Indian territory. And Alexander's going to win. And this is a pretty big win because the Indian armies were significantly larger than any of the armies that Alexander had faced before. And most notably, they had elephants. Elephants are like the nuclear weapons of the ancient world. You do not want to have to fight an elephant. It doesn't matter how long your sarissa is. If an elephant comes stampeding at you, you're going to get squished. And the Indian armies understood exactly how to use these against the phalanx because the strength of the phalanx is them staying unified. So you run, a few elephants through the middle of a phalanx, and guess what? It doesn't work anymore. And then you send your archers in and your horseback people in and you cut them to ribbons. But what had kind of saved Alexander's bacon was that he had a lot of these native Indian troops that are going to help kind of bolster his soldiers up, and they're going to tell him a lot about the lay of the land. And this is really going to be good for Alexander because he's, again, super tactically minded. So he can use this to his advantage, and they win the battle at Hydaspes River. And instead of kind of moving down to the actual city of Hydaspes, Alexander's deciding that he's going to build a bridge himself right there so that he can control where he crosses the river on both sides. And this is going to be really important because then he can move his entire army into what would have been enemy territory at that point. So, then he doesn't have to go take this big city quite yet. Clumsy beasts. What if you slap the elephant in the butt? I would not encourage you to slap a war elephant in the hiney. Probably not the best idea. I would think that if an elephant kicked you, you might hurt. So after the Battle of Hydaspes River, Porus is going to start running. And Alexander is really going to lean more on his allies. There are some native Indian kings that don't like Porus that are going to come over to Alexander's side and help him track Porus down. You become a human pancake. You give it head pats like, oh, nice elephant. I actually have a fun little photo of Porus here. Well, it's not a photo. The thing that I'm about to show you is a photo, but it is a coin. This is a coin struck probably somewhere around 328 or 327. No, probably 327 or 326. 327 or 326 BC. And this is Alexander on his horse fighting Porus on an elephant. And stabbing him, ironically, in the hiney. There we are. So that's what happens. You hope that your horse is fast enough to get away. You have a really long 14-foot spear and then you stab him and then you run. So you don't slap it in the butt. No, you poke it with a sarissa and then run. Who won that one? Alexander did. So Porus ends up getting basically rolled up by these Indian people that are flocking to Alexander's side and Alexander's allies. And there's going to be another big battle at Hydaspes itself in 326. Porus is going to get defeated again. And this is going to be the end of Porus because at that point, Alexander is going to have the majority of... the majority of northern India is kind of open to his invasion. And he wants to go to the Ganges. He hears about all sorts of big, powerful kingdoms over here. And Alexander wants to keep on going. Just like, keep on going. But this is going to be an important moment. The soldiers of Macedon and the core of Alexander's armies decide that they don't want to go any further. These big battles against the Indians had really taken a toll on them. The people in India were very fierce opponents, were clearly not going to lie down. They had humongous armies. They had elephants. Elephants. Nobody wants to fight an elephant. Elephants are scared of mice. Did they know it back then? They were trying to weaponize it. Release the mice! Like the war mice, like galloping across the field. I think elephants are startled by small things that are under their feet. Maybe that's what we should get David Peterson to draw is a mouse, a guard mouse staring down an elephant and the elephant running away. That would be a great picture. So the soldiers of Alexander's army mutiny, and they say, we're not going any further. We're done. We're out. We quit. We're so far away from home. We've been gone for almost a decade. We don't want to keep fighting and dying like this. And Alexander is like real angry at this. And he's like, but there's more world out there to conquer. There's more stuff to do. And they're like, look, dude, we're done. You can do what you want to, but we're not going with you. Bro, we're literally done. Hey, Fid. So we're done. And Alexander is like, well, crap. That sucks. I wanted to be king of the world. He was the king of wishful Greeking. So what do you do? Well, he's not going to go home just straight. No. Can't do that. We can't stop conquering people. We've got to conquer more people. So what are we going to do? Well, instead of going further out into northern India, Alexander decides, what if we just conquer this way? And when we come down the Indus River, we'll come back up through Persia and we'll end up in Mesopotamia this way. What if we do that? Is that cool? Can we do that? And his soldiers are like, are we going home? And he's like, eventually, homeward. And they're like, fine, if that's all that we're going to get out of you, we can get what we can take, right? So he follows down the Indus River and he makes his way back over into what would have been Persia. And he gets back over to this area and finds out that while he was over in India, a lot of those Persian satraps that were supposed to be on his side had started getting all antsy in their pantsy. And so he has to kill a whole bunch of them to kind of straighten them up. Like, I gave you my trust. You betrayed it. Now you're going to die. Did he ask geographers about that? About that? Well, he knew where a lot of this stuff was, relatively speaking. He knew that the Indus River ran into the Persian Gulf, and he knew that there was a coastline. But did he have an accurate map of that area that told him exactly how far it was? No. And actually, a lot of soldiers died from exposure and starvation as they were marching back up this way, which didn't look so great on his record. Not really a people person, is he? Well, see, that's the crazy thing about it. Like, he can be. He can be like the smartest and the suavest guy out there, but he also wants to be the most powerful person on the face of the earth. And at that point, he already was, but he was only 32. He has so much more life ahead of him. He had already done all of this stuff in just the span of a decade. What did it cost him? Everything. I got you there, Half Design. I got you. So he gets back over here and he gets back into Mesopotamia and he starts thinking, what if we invaded Arabia? Because that's over here, right? That's towards home. That's towards home, right? We could swing through Arabia and end up over here in Egypt, which is back in our territory, right? We can conquer Arabia. That's a great idea, right? And his people are like, really, man? Like, honestly, what about home? Well, there we go. So he gets back to Babylon. And by the time he gets back to Babylon, this argument between his mom and Antipater had become just too much. So he actually removes Antipater from control of Macedon. And that's going to cause a little bit of a stir, because there's a fear at this point that Alexander is angry at his Greek generals, and he wants to replace them with Persian generals who would, of course, then go and continue fighting with him. Can you stop conquering things for just a minute? Right. And Alexander has to have like this sit down with his Greek soldiers and like, I don't hate you all. I'm not trying to kill you all. I just want to keep fighting. And they're all like, we're so tired of this. Like, for real, man, honestly. So in 323, he gets back to Babylon. He spends some time with his wife, whose name is Roxanne. She ends up pregnant. And around that time, Alexander's best friend ends up dying. And there's some speculation about whether or not these guys were best friends or best friends. Whether or not they were in a relationship together. You don't have to turn on the red light. Right. So Alexander had been kind of bummed out. When his friend dies, he goes on a drinking binge. He throws this big feast. Supposedly he drinks an entire big jug full of unmixed wine. And it makes him sick to his stomach. and 14 days later he dies. Now, of course, there are all sorts of rumors and all sorts of questions about, did he get poisoned by his own people? The thing about it is, 14-day poison, slow-acting poison like that, was really not very well known in the ancient world. They didn't put the magic ingredient in the unmixed wine. Yeah. So, did he get poisoned? Probably not. Did he die of brokenheartedness because his friend / boyfriend died and his army had kind of given up on him and things weren't going good at home and he just wanted to get drunk and party? Maybe. But in 323, at the age of 32, Alexander the Great dies. And that's where we'll pick up next week, because that's just the first half of the story. And the second act, or I guess this would be the third act, because the first act was Philip, and then the second act was Alexander. The third act is what happens when he dies, because things get interesting. And we'll talk about that next Thursday. So, I forgot. Let's look at a map, because I have another map. This is the map of the furthest extent of Alexander. The funeral procession robberies. Dang it, Ptolemy. So this is Alexander's route as he's moving through all of these big cities and all of the battles that we've talked about, and how he's moving around and where he went and where all the fights were. Dang it, Bobby. This, at the time, was the largest empire in the world. And it was the largest empire that the world had ever seen. And it was the largest empire that would be seen for probably another 300 or 400 years. You could have shown this instead of Google Earth. I could have, but the writing is so tiny. I'm looking at it myself on the screen here, and it's tiny. I should have been referring to it more frequently, and I will accept that as an error on my part. Again, to do so in the same time frame is just insane. Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. 336 to 332. This is crazy. Just absolutely crazy that he accomplished so much. Oh yeah, so here's Bucephala, the city named after his horse, way over here in India. Oh, you can't even see that. It's not on the map. What? Can I shrink this in? Do I have to blow it up and then move it over? Yeah. So there's Bucephala over here. Look at all the Alexandrias. Alexandria Prophatistia, Alexandria Achateron. Yeah, lots of... where's Alexandria? Oh, there we are. There's Alexandria the furthest, Alexandria Escate. So that's Alexander. Big old powerful guy. Does a whole bunch of stuff and still not happy about it. What profits a man to gain the world and to lose his own soul? So there's a question for you. Or is that all, what was the term? Was that all fake news according to Cave Geek? All right, ladies and gents. So that's all for me for tonight. But again, as always, that doesn't mean we have to end here. If you have questions that you'd like to throw out, go for it. If you have, also very interesting Greek Buddhist learnings by Pyrrho. There we are. While I remember, was Thermopylae called Thermopylae before Xerxes, or is that how? No, Thermopylae means the hot gates. And at the location of Thermopylae, there were actually some hot springs. I mean, they're still there today. You can go see them. So there are natural hot springs in that area. The gate came from the fact that the mountains run so close to the sea that there's kind of a natural little pass there. So Thermopylae, hot gate. The Hot Gates sounds like a great name for a disco. Hey, come on down to the Hot Gates tonight. Roller disco, perhaps. Tonight. The Hot Gates. Alrighty. Anybody want to redeem anything? Anybody have any points you want to redeem? Any requests? Any ideas or thoughts or questions? Oh, we want to see the puppy. Let me call the puppy. I bet the puppy is asleep. I haven't heard the puppy moving about lately. Let me call the puppy. I believe she is coming. I have roused her from her slumber. Does she have the chicken with her? Oh, of course she does. Hello, Katie. Hello. What you doing? You want to come up here? Want to come and see me? Where are you going? Are you going over here? Hello. Are you going over here now? Your loving public wants to see you. Hey, come here. Come here. Come here. Hey. Where are you going? Okay, so she's going under the table now. She's going to come out over here. Nope, she's coming back out this way. Where are you going? Hey. Come here. The people want to see you. Okay, there we go. Yeah, there you go. There's the puppy. Hello. Were you taking a nap? Yeah. You taking a big nap? Oh my goodness. You're such a good girl. Yes, a good girl. Okay, go back and take a nap some more. You love the tail. Yeah, we call those chicken noises. Not because, well, they sort of sound like clucking, but mostly because they come from the fact that there's a mouthful of chicken. How old is she? She is 5. How is she both so happy and so whiny? She doesn't know how to handle her happiness. She's just like, oh my god, I'm so happy. Yeah, she's a mess. That's the puppy. So, yeah, happy tears. Alrighty. So, okay. While I am looking for someone to raid, let me give you the rundown. So, rundown goes like this. So, on Tuesday next week, oh my goodness, there are all of the people streaming. Lots of the people streaming. Okay, so on Tuesday night, 7, we will be talking about The Samurai. This is a viewer request episode that is one that everybody voted on. So that's coming on Tuesday. On Halloween, we have the history of horror stories or else. That's 2 days away, man. I have very little chance of getting that completely done. And I don't know exactly how I'm even going to do that. Oh, is that election night? Yeah, we probably won't do Samurai on election night then. I forgot about election night. We might do it on Monday. Yeah, let's do it on Monday. So we'll do Samurai on Monday, and we'll talk about honor and virtue and service and loyalty on Monday. I hope that means you early voted. Yeah, I got to go do that tomorrow. I was thinking about doing that today, but then, well, hurricane and all that stuff. So, got to go do that tomorrow. So Monday, let's do a special viewer request night on Monday. You love Sudoku. And then Thursday, assuming the world does not devolve into civil war and chaos, and portals from the other side bring in the ones from that walk behind the walls, or whatever they are. What's it called? The dark ones, or the many angled ones from Hellboy. Anyway, the Ogdru Jihad, before the crazy Orwellian / Lovecraftian nightmare happens. If everything goes okay, we'll have Thursday night to talk about what happens when the world falls apart and everybody starts grabbing their own piece of Alexander's empire and carving out their own stuff. You might do a hangout on Tuesday to distract me. Hey, look at there, Vern. Crab people, yeah. So, there are so many people streaming. Let me see if there is anybody that I follow that we have not ever rated. I think I know where we might head. Let me see. Push the buttons the right way, you dum-dum. I like to try to spread the raids around. And I like to do that because I want to expose as many of my friends to the people that I think are cool that you should go hang out with. Also, these are people that have potentially raided me in the past, so I like to return the favor. So let's see. Patrick Rothfuss is streaming. I fear that if I went to Patrick Rothfuss's channel, I might yell at him for waiting 6 years without writing that third book that he's already taken the advance for. But I don't know if you want to see me get nerd ugly. Let's see what Day Dragon is doing. Okay, so the person that I thought we might want to raid, I don't think we're actually going to. I don't know exactly what's going on that stream. So they're amazing, but when you going to finish that last book there, bud? You've had 7 years. Okay, let's see. Who have we not rated recently? Right. We rated... I think we just... Yeah, that was like last week. It's been a while since we've rated Kirk Shannon. Yeah, we rated D, I think last week. Unfolds the Sarissa. So I try to spread it around. It's been probably about a month and a half or so since we've rated. We rated Cryomera last Thursday, so I guess that would have been, we rated D Thursday before that. So let's go raid Kirk. Kirk Shannon, great pen and ink drawer, cool guy, all around good dude. I'm going to hit the button here. Thank you all for coming by and hanging out, and for the good chat. It's been a good one. I hope everybody has a good weekend. I will see you Monday for a special stream. And hopefully then Tuesday we can all not die. But thanks everybody. You all have a good one, and I'll see you around next time.